Hello, and welcome to today's European SharePoint Office 365 and Azure Community webinar. My name is Laura, and I'm delighted to be joined by three wonderful speakers today in this series of mini webinars. First up, we have Tomasz MVP, who will present the topic Power Platform ALM Latest Innovations, Pipelines. Then we will invite Marcel to the stage at 3:25 p.m. to present the topic Become a Microsoft Power Automate Pro with the Power of Expressions. And finally, at 3:40 p.m., Michel MVP, will present the topic Getting Started with Cards for Power Apps. Remember to join in on our conversation about today's webinar on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @EuropeanSP and our hashtag is #ESPC23. Don't forget to check out the Resource Centre. This is updated daily with the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. Simply visit sharepointeurope.com and click the Content tab at the top. Continue your learning by joining us for our next webinar, Master Data Management with SAP and MS Power Platform, taking place tomorrow, Thursday, 26th of January, from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. CET. For full details, please check out sharepointeurope.com/Power Platform Week. At ESPC 22, Vesa Juvonen delivered a keynote about designing, configuring, and building engaging experiences within Microsoft 365. Microsoft 365 provides endless opportunities on adjusting and enhancing experiences for users, which is a great opportunity for partners and customers to build engaging experiences. Watch the replay of the ESPC 22 keynote where Vesa and friends covered the spectrum from no-code, low-code to pro-code, the configuration and extensibility story in Microsoft 365. Visit sharepointeurope.com for the full recording of this keynote session. The European Power Platform Conference 2023 is coming to Dublin. Join us from the 20th to the 22nd of June this year to power up your knowledge and connections. Book now at sharepointeurope.com/Power Platform Conference and use the code EPPC23 at checkout to get 30% off. The ESPC 23 call for speakers is now officially open. Be part of something truly special. Speak and engage with the leading experts, IT professionals, developers, and business decision makers at ESPC 23, Europe's premier Microsoft 365 and Azure conference. This is your chance to take a leading role within the conference and the community, sharing your in-depth knowledge, passion, and experience with your peers, in turn helping empower the Microsoft 365 and Azure community to professional success. Please visit sharepointeurope.com/submit to speak to find out more. After all three webinars, we will have a questions and answers session. Type any questions you might have into the questions window and ensure to let us know who your question is for. Questions will be selected and answered at the end of the three presentations. This webinar will be recorded and added to the Resource Centre, where you will be notified by email when it is available. And now I'm going to pass you over to our first webinar presenter, Tomasz. Hello, Tomasz.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am really impressed how many of you have joined us today. Okay, now I'll be talking about the Power Platform ALM and especially about the latest addition to what we have now in Power Platform. It's called the pipelines. I don't know if any of you has already tried that. If not, then this is a great chance to learn a little bit about it. So basically, the pipelines is the preview feature that you can add to your environment, and it requires you to have a so-called pipelines host environment. So first thing that you need to create to be able to use that feature is to create a host environment and then install in that environment an application. I'll show you what application is that. So like once you navigate to resources and then Dynamics 365 applications, then there you should have the Power Platform pipelines. If you don't have this application installed in this environment, then hit the install up and from the list of available applications, select the Power Platform pipelines. Well, I have installed it already, so it's not available here anymore. The point is that you should use a dedicated isolated environment so that it's not like the COE environment or your default environment or any other. I mean, you can use, but it's not recommended. Now, the second thing that you need to do on the level of the pipeline host environment is to grant access to every or to any user who in the future is going to use these pipelines for deployment. So to do that, you need to navigate to list of all users and then select the user who you want really to grant this access, and then to security roles. And then under security roles, you need to select this deployment pipeline user security role. So with that, the user is not going to be able to access the environment or to see this environment in the list of their environments, but they will be able to use the pipelines. All right, so remember about the security role, and that it has to be added to any user that you want to be able to use the pipelines functionally. All right, so once the application is deployed and installed, you are now able to navigate to the environment where this app has been created. And then under makepowerapps.com, you need to navigate to apps, and there you will see the deployment pipeline configuration model-driven application. And that is basically that single place where you need to configure everything and then to be able to run it. So the next step you have to do once you have deployed this application is to go under the environments, and here you need to add every single environment that you will use in your pipelines. Now, on a single host, you can create multiple pipelines. There is a recommendation that you don't reuse the environment across different pipelines, so that if you have one pipeline that use dev, test, and prod, then you shouldn't create another pipeline that uses the same environment. Well, but that's everything like up to you. If you can live with such a mess, then it's fine. Nevertheless, when you are adding new environments, things you have to fill in the form is obviously the name of the environment. Then you need to provide the environment type. Now, the development environment is going to be usually just one in your pipeline. So this is where you are creating the solutions. And then the target environments, you can have more than one. So like you can have a test environment, it's going to be a target environment. You can have prod environment, you can have pre-prod environment, and all of those are going to be target environments. Now, in my case, I'm now creating the dev environment, and I need to navigate to Power Platform Admin Center to grab its ID. So that's the ID of the environment. So, okay. And then save and close. One thing you have to remember is that this feature is in preview. What is important is that you are not able to add any environments that are not in the same region as the host. So my host is in Europe, and I can only use environments which are in Europe. Furthermore, you are not able to create pipelines that are deploying data between different regions. So that is not allowed as well, or to deploy to a different tenant, which is not allowed as well. Maybe it will come soon, but I think that for so complex scenarios, you should use DevOps. Right, so next I'll add the test. And that's the target environment, as said, because I'm going to deploy that environment from dev. And lastly, I'll add the prod environment. Now, another important thing is that the prod environment, once the pipelines are released from the preview, has to be a managed environment. And then what it means is that any user who is going to use the pipeline and deploy to the production environment will require a separate license, because managed environments requires the premium license. So just keep that in mind. It's not going to be like really for free. Okay, so now I have all these environments provisioned or added to the application. And then the next step is that I need to create a pipeline. And here again, I need to first name the pipeline name. And save it. Now, once it is saved, I'm now ready to define the dev environment or the source environment, and then to create stages. So first, I'll add this existing development environment, which is that. And right now, I'm able to create deployment stages. So first, I'll create a deployment stage from dev to test. there is no previous deployment stage because it's not yet created. So this deployment stage is going to allow me to deploy from dev to test. And then the next deployment stage is going to be for prod. And here I am able to create, to use this previous deployment stage so that this pipeline is going to know that before the solution can be moved to production, it has first to hit the the test environment, and then it's done. And so once you are done with the creation of the pipeline, you are now able to share it. So like once you hit the button share, you can then manage access. And here you can actually just grant the access to any user who has this pipeline user security role. And the permissions that you need to grant them is read, and read is enough. I mean, you can't even grant them other permissions, so read is sufficient, and that's it. So with that, John is going to be now able to use the pipeline. And now once this is done, you're actually able now to navigate your solutions to your test solution or to any solution you'd like to deploy using the pipelines. And here under the solution details, you'll see the fourth option in the menu is called the pipelines. So once you navigate here, you'll see all the pipelines that are available to you. So like either you have created them or were shared with you. And right with that, you are able to start your first deployment. So now once I hit the button to deploy to the test environment, the application is going to show me what is the definition of that pipeline, and then it's going to validate whether all the required dependencies are within the solution, whether the connection on that target environment is created, whether the environmental variables which are going to be used now in the target environment are having their values set, and so on and so on. All right, so the connection is done. Now, one thing that you need to remember here is that you are always deploying in the context of the user who is signed in. So you can't really choose a connection made for a different user. So if you're using a different account for deployment on test prod environments, and you would like to keep them and their connections, then you would need to sign into your dev environment with that other account and make a deployment with that other account. Because as I said, it is always being done in the context of the user who is making a deployment. All right, and now once I hit deploy, this solution is now going to be deployed to the test environment. It always takes a moment. In the meanwhile, I can navigate to the application and to the dashboard, where I will see like the current status of what is happening with my pipelines. So these are the pipelines which were deleted. Right now, there is like one release being done to the test environment, and there is as well information like how many deployments were done so far, how many are in progress, how many failed. So this is like the dashboard and overview of what is happening in my environments, speaking about the pipelines. But the deployment to the test is still ongoing because there is still this one started instance here. Once it is gone, I'll be like pretty sure it has been deployed, but it takes some time as said. So it's not really like a rapid deployment, but I think it's not really slower than if you simply exported that solution on your own and then try to import it on a target environment as well on your own. Right. Yep. And it's still ongoing. So before I joined this call and I tried it on my own, it was like 2 to 3 minutes for the deployment, but I hope it will really end up before my time is out. So anyways, as mentioned, there are quite a number of limitations. You can navigate to documentation of the pipelines to just see all the Q&A, which is very descriptive. Things that I faced, because I'm already using that in the productive solutions, are those facts that you can't really deploy between different regions and that you cannot really choose a different connection for the connection references that you are having in the solution. So like me being signed in as myself, I can't really deploy to testing environment using other users' account for the connections. So things that you might possibly know if you're using DevOps for ALM are not really available here for the pipelines, because this is really following the user context and well anything that comes with it. Hopefully, as this feature is being enhanced and extended with new functionalities, it will allow as well to accomplish some more complex scenarios. As mentioned, the ability, for example, to move the solution between different regions. All right. Well, it's taking really a lot of time, but that might be as well related to the fact that I'm now deploying to a developer environment, not to like a real productive environment. Nevertheless, trust me, it's working fine. It just requires some time, which is not the best, the strongest thing when doing a live webinar. Other things that you can't really do is like you can't roll back to the previous version, or you can't check what changes have been done through that deployment. So it's more similar to what you can achieve through the export and import of a managed solution rather than what you can achieve with the pipelines that you can create and configure in DevOps. On the other hand, that one is much simpler and much easier to use. So right now the deployment has been completed, and once I navigate to the environment that is my test environment, I can see that there is this test pipeline solution created a minute ago. So this first stage was completed successfully. And then if I go to productive environment, there I have no of these test solutions, but what was that? Now I'm ready to deploy to this prod environment because the test had been completed successfully. So here again, the application is guiding me through the steps. It is now validating the connections being used and environmental variables that are being used as well. And then again, once everything is checked and it's validated, then deployment can be started. And again, once I navigate back to the dashboard, I'll now see that there has been one deployment to the test environment. There is one to the prod environment, and again that the number of succeeded deployments is one because well there was just one succeeded deployment for the test environment, and that there is one now going for the prod. And there is number of failed as well, but that is due to my previous tests. So this information is stored in a Dataverse. I just can remove it so that it doesn't interfere. Nevertheless, I cannot check if the prod deployment is completed, but still nope, it's still ongoing. I think I still have 2 minutes, right? So let's just have a look at how this deployment is going on. What is important as well is that once you navigate to the pipeline, you'll see here as well all this run history information. So the details about what happened successfully, like which deployment happened successfully, which failed, and so on and so on. So all this information about who created it, when it was deployed, and what solution was deployed. So that's fine. And yep, and that's done. So right now it has been installed in productive environment. And once I refresh, I will be able to find it here. And there it is. There is the test pipeline solution with all the artifacts that have been moved from the dev environment with the variable, with the connection reference, and so on. So with that, you're really able to easily accomplish what previously you might have been doing through the export and import of solutions, but with a much more fancy approach that allows you to pre-configure the deployment scenarios, pipelines, share them with other makers, and just have more of the control on who is moving solutions from which environment to what environments, to have all this overview. So the governance is as well much higher. And well, I keep my fingers crossed that this feature is going to be redeveloped intensively over the next weeks or months, and that it will allow to accomplish all these scenarios that all these well requirements I just mentioned through this short webinar. All right, so that's all from my side, I think. And well, thank you very much for your presence. And if you have any questions, just please write them down in the Q&A section so that I will be able, hopefully, to answer them after all the webinars are completed.
Thanks, Tomasz, for coming on today and for a brilliant demo. So now we will move on to our next speaker, Marcel, who will present the topic, Become a Microsoft Power Automate Pro with the Power of Expressions. Hello, Marcel.
Yeah, hello everyone. So, nice to be here with all this power addicts, I would call them. So, the topic today is become a Microsoft Power Automate Pro with the power of expressions. About me, I'm a Power Platform consultant, citizen developer, so I haven't learned all this IT stuff also. Then I love the Power Platform and the community. I'm married and I have a son, and I live in Switzerland. So this is small things about me. Next one. So the input, today the input is we get a mail where is the HTML formatted information table. We have a task ID in the subject and some attachments. And the solution is we want to grab all the information from the HTML table and the task ID and save all attachments with the current date, but not the easy way at the beginning of this of the name. We want to have it at the last at the end of the name. So this is how the mail will look like. It's it has there's a subject with the task ID. You have the HTML table here, and then you have some attachments. So I will go to this to the flow. The first one, this is where for the expressions we have here this inbox, or that when a mail is arrived. So it's important to use here the subject filter, that not all incoming mails trigger this flow. Then we go further. So I grab here this the task ID. Here, this is an easy one. Just grab. I will show you this one. You grab the task ID over there. So you split on the spaces and grab the first one. It's not the first one. It's it started with 0. So you take the first. Yeah. So the second one, but it's here. It's the first inside. So then we have here some nice, wonderful expressions, but really this takes a while to put everything in, and if you don't know what's in or what to write, then it's difficult. So we have here in our in Power Automate have this expressions from examples. So I will show you, because I get this one. This is just the HTML from the mail, and this is the body. And we want to grab things like, where is it? There's a table. So here the John Smith, and also the email address. We want to grab all this stuff. So we go back and say, okay, I want to have here at the grab the website. Why I use this path JSON? Because I prefer using the path JSON instead of variables, because this is parameters, and this will not change in my whole flow. So I use this path JSON, and then I can grab this in this flow later. So we go to expressions, say okay to the website expressions, and say okay, format data by examples. We take the body and I put the HTML in, and I say here I want to have at first the website. So we take this. We get here this nice looking expression. Okay, we say we don't test it now. So we don't have to, enough time. So I grab this one. Where is it? Yeah, it's over there. And the second thing is the contact. So again, body, the same HTML inside, and we grab this mail address over there. Apply. Normally you should put more than one HTML body inside, and more examples that the AI can learn what you want. So, and normally you would test this over there. So then maybe you saw that I have some special things over there. You can see it over here also with expressions and something like this. This is because I used here over there this experimental feature. This has sometimes some interesting feature. I mean, you can't read sometimes the whole thing. So because it's experimental features, but I activate this experimental feature because I want to have here a full line or multi-line input and not just a single line. So we grab these things now. So we go this way. I said here. This is the other thing under experimental feature. You have also like this as a conditions or filter array. You can grab all this this stuff from this get items or from this SharePoint list over here, and don't have to know what to put in. So I use here the task ID. That's over from here. Then I go further, and then I count how many rows came back. If nothing came back from this get items, then I create a new row to my SharePoint list. And if there's something in, I grab over there the project manager mail. I will show you this the SharePoint list in a second. And after that, I say I take this ID. Why I use here first? Because we get an array back from the get items. So I said, okay, just want the first of this array, and then I want to have the ID. Then I set here the state and some value and so on, and here also the comment, the output, the comment from the mail address over here, and then the coalesce. It's so cool function because it says, okay, grab everything and take just the first non-blank value. So here I have use past JSON parameters name, and if there's nothing in, then write NA. And it's also here with the cities and the contact. And if we grabbed all the data and created this new rows, then I take the attachments. This is standard, and here I also say, okay, I want to have the ID. This also like the coalesce. It's before it's I prefer here just the coalesce, and I combine here the update item and the create item. So it doesn't matter if it goes to the left or the right side. I have just one action over there and not this. If this was created or I have to put this in a variable or so, I grab whatever is not blank. And over there, I take here this. This is a little bit more function. I will show you this over there. What's in? We have also the concat again. Then there's the slice. This is also generated from the get examples. So I grab here the names, the name before. This is that's over the name before this the expression. So I mean here it's a dot, maybe dot JPEG or whatever. I grab here the last of split, and here's split it with a dot. And here I want to have everything before the dot. And you can see here the UTC now. I'll show you this. I take the UTC now and formatted the date inside of the UTC now, and put everything together with the concat. So why I use this and not something like the same function like here with the first and split and dot? Because the problem is, what if someone sends you a mail or some attachments with a dot inside? There are some people, they send such attachment. So I grab this, everything what's before, and then I concat this with the underline and the current date, and then the content bytes. Okay, then I write this in the list. So I sent it the mail 50 minutes ago. So I test this again. So now we will see over there, it's the parameters. Oh, the city was not correct. Okay. And here I have the attachments and the city. I deleted the city, and so okay. Then over there I go to my list. This is the SharePoint list. It's here's the title inside, the state ID, the project manager, and the state is now ask the project manager, here the contact and the URL, and this triggers a second flow, it's the approval expression. And here it's the thing you see it later. This approval is not nice formatted, but you will see it in the next session how you can format this. And here I have a trigger condition, because I want that this flow runs just if the state is true. So I added here and trigger condition. So this is the second one. So how can I say, or how can I or how do I know what should I write inside? Okay, there's an easy way. You can say here I make here filter array. This is my big friend, the filter array, and I say here, oops, sorry, filter array, and say it. The state ID is equal to true. Go to the advanced mode, and here I have the nice formatted function, and I put this in the trigger condition. So after that, I go to the approvals. The approval is nothing special. Here I would send this to the project manager normally, and here I have as also a special thing. The most people use the normal update item. I have also the normal update, but it looks a little bit strange, because this is the normal way. you see this and said, okay, I want the title here, I want the claims here, and so on. But if you put something in the normal one, in the normal looking action, you can say, okay, go to peak code, and you see here the code how you should send the object, the information to this list. And why I should use this? Because why and how you should say it should be a variable also, or here like here a string the list name, because maybe you have more than one list. You have 10 lists or so, and you want to fill all the lists special and dynamic with this one flow. So you can use this flow also for other cases or for other lists, and so you can make this dynamic this as a dynamic content. And then here's also the same. You have the approval, and normally you see what if it's approved and what if it's rejected. I said here, if equals, okay, the outcome of this start and wait for approval is approved, then say set the value okay, and otherwise say or set it's cancelled. Also the same with the state. With the state ID, it's the same. Say this is approved, then 3. Otherwise, the 4, and the comment is just the first comment from the first response, and there's just one response. And if I go over there, I should see the approval. Maybe it's over. Maybe it's on my phone. Yeah, send you perfect. I can say here perfect time. Say approve, and we will see. Yes, okay. This is why I haven't tested this the inputs from the example. But if you test it and give them more information, then you will have the correct things inside. And then here you have your perfect time. Everything is in, and you saw here. I was too fast. The name, city, website, contact information, and link to the item, to the SharePoint item, and that's it. And in the next session, you will see how you can send nice looking adaptive cards.
Brilliant, Marcel. Thanks for joining us as well today and for another great demo. So now we will move on to our final speaker, Michel Mendes, who will present the topic, Getting Started with Cards for Power Apps. Hello, Michel.
Hello, how are you? Just sharing my screen here. So guys, let's talk about cards for Power Apps. Good afternoon, everyone. Before we begin, just a little bit about myself for who doesn't know me. Currently, I'm working as a senior consultant at Avanade. I am a Microsoft MVP in M365 apps and services. I have worked in the IT field since 2008, so I started as a .NET developer, then I moved into SharePoint, and currently I am working developing solutions on top of M365 and the Power Platform. And I'm from Brazil, and since 2018, I live in Dublin, in Ireland. And the quick topics we are gonna jump in this session is, to begin with, just explain the origins of cards for Power Apps. What are the advantages of cards in relation to normal adaptive cards, and how does the integration with Teams work? Some differences on how we build the cards in relation to a standard Canvas app, new variable concepts that were introduced in cards, and also how does the Dataverse integration happens with cards. And to wrap up, we are going to see what to expect in the upcoming releases of cards. The first origin of cards for Power Apps is obviously adaptive cards. For who doesn't know what adaptive cards is, adaptive cards is a platform agnostic method that we use to share information or collect data, interact with data, and keep the same UI consistent across different devices or applications. So for example, you can build an adaptive card that's going to look the same, regardless if it's used in Outlook or if it's used in Microsoft Teams. But in order for us to make the adaptive card work, we would need to have some pro development applications built. So for example, we could build using a C# code to build a custom Teams bot, or we would have to be building custom workflows using Logic Apps or Power Automate. So we wouldn't be able to do data integration from the card itself alone. And if you want to be creating cards, you can use the website adaptivecards.io, but obviously most of the times you still need to be tweaking JSON elements to make the cards look pretty. And then the second bit that's behind Cards for Power Apps is PowerFX. That's the widely known low-code language used in the Power Platform, widely used in Canvas apps, and now it's being introduced across different areas of the Power Platform. As we can see now in Power Virtual Agents, there's some options to create logic using formulas, some model-driven apps features, such as the custom command bar buttons, and Dataverse features, such as the new calculated columns based on formulas. And for people who are very used to Excel, it's very friendly because they are very similar to Excel expressions. And because of that, with a few lines of code, we can build a lot. Whereas if we would be building applications using any pro code language, it would require maybe thousands of lines of code to do the same. And combining both, now we would have a studio similar to what we have for Canvas apps. Same idea as we have controls to be dragged and dropped into the middle of the screen, the properties pane, and ways to create different screens inside of the app. It will be working the same way as it works for Canvas apps. But the main advantage, obviously, that we are building the cards using that studio instead of building just a JSON and connecting to the workflows, is that we can then add behaviors to the cards using PowerFX. We can then write data to data sources using PowerFX. And similarly, as we can create multiple screens, we can then create multiple cards and navigate between different cards to create behaviors similar to what we have in a Canvas app. So for example, you could have a card where you collect the data. As soon as the data is submitted, you can show another card like a success message, success screen. And the other advantage that we have with card is that as it is an independent engine, it doesn't need anything on the background. So basically, you can play the card from the editor, you copy the link, and then you copy the link and paste it into Teams. When you paste it into Teams, the link automatically renders. So that's only what you need to do. You wouldn't need to maintain those workflows or Azure apps to control the behaviors and data manipulation. And easily you can integrate with the Dataverse with a few lines of PowerFX code. You wouldn't need to also be tweaking JSON to create cards or to make them look pretty. Simply use the drag and drop designer, even though you still can edit the JSON code for the cards if needed, but it's up to you. You don't need to do it. If you want to get started also creating cards, you won't find the option to create cards from the main Create an App menu. So you have to find it below the AI Builder option on the left-hand side of the Maker portal. And worth having in mind that it's not available in every tenant. I'm going to leave some links later with the details of what are the regions that it is available, because maybe if you try it, you won't find the options because you are not in the regions that it's released yet. But then from that menu, you can start creating your cards. Some other differences that we have in relation to a standard Canvas app is that, as obviously it was stated, at the moment, we can build the cards only to render with Teams instead of creating full applications. The variable concepts are different for cards. So for example, you won't have context variables. You need to explicitly configure the variables before using them in formulas, and you have only global formulas available. And there are a few concepts which I'm going to demo later in relation to how the variables work in cards as well. There's no way to upload images or media directly to the app. So for example, if you want to use an image into a card, you will need to host it in a public link, such as a blob storage, for example. Grab the link, and then you can use the link to put an image inside of the adaptive card. If you want to use repeating elements, as we use in a Canvas app, we won't have galleries or tables, but there's a new set of controls that are called fact set and column set that you can use to put repeating information inside of your card. And one interesting thing as well is that if you want to reference values from controls in the screen so that you can save the values to Dataverse or assign them to variables, you wouldn't be accessing the control.property value, for example, as we would do in a Canvas app. So if you want to grab a text value, text field value, for example, you would only reference the name of the control and not control.text. It's important to have in mind as well that even though we are using the same language that we use for Canvas apps, not all the functions are available. And some of the functions, they have a slightly different usage. It's already stated by Microsoft, and we can find it in the documentation. So for example, one that I could find while playing around with it is that we cannot do a patch function with the defaults option to create a new item into Dataverse. So in order to create a new item into Dataverse, we need to use collect to that data source and then pass the object values. Just a quick demo of how the variables work. So for example, if you want to create variables, there is this menu here on the left-hand side where we can create the variables or edit the variables. And when we create a new variable, we have the option of select if the variable is temporary or permanent. What means with this is that if you create a temporary variable, the value of that variable is going to be lost. If you create a permanent variable, that value is going to be kept across the same card link. So if you generate a card link, play it or paste it into different teams chats, the value for that variable is going to be kept. Whereas the temporary is going to be kept only for the session, the single session for the time the user opens it. And you can also set up different types of variables, default values for variables. One interesting thing that we find here in the bottom as well is that even though it's not stated yet by Microsoft, there's an option that tags the variable to be allowed to be returned to a flow or a bot. So what I expect from this is that much likely this is going to be able to be integrated into our virtual agents or our automate workflows, which would be speeding up the experience of creating custom workflows and or designing adaptive cards as we used to design the adaptive cards purely with JSON. So in this case, it's simply two variables configured with two buttons to increase or decrease values for each. So the count up button would be increasing the variable, the value of the permanent variable. Count down would be decreasing the value of the permanent variable, and the count up would be doing the same for the temporary one. So what happens is if we play the card, we play around the variable, increase the value of the temporary and the permanent one. When we generate the link to send that card into Teams, we're going to see that only the permanent one is going to be kept. So the card already opens with a value of the permanent variable. So that's it in terms of variables. But then we would have also the concepts. We would have also the integration with Dataverse available at the moment. In this case here, it's just a simple card with two text fields and a button to submit and save the data into Dataverse. So what happens on the background is if I copy the link, send it to Teams, as in the previous example, it auto generates the card automatically. The person in the chat could be sending the values, and when they click submit and the values they are saved successfully in Dataverse, we redirect the user to a different screen showing a confirmation message to the user. After we saved it, we can see that after refreshing the page, the new item is added into a Dataverse table. And on the background, how was this all created? Simply as I was mentioning, we have here, instead of the patch function to save data into Dataverse, it's just collect function, passing the name of the table, and as the object to be saved, just the names of the controls as values of the JSON object. And at the end, the navigate function, the same one that as we use in Canvas apps to be able to navigate into the success screen. And in the success screen, it's the same concept. It's just a button to navigate back to the form. And each time we navigate between different screens, if we don't manually set up the values for the variables in the forms, they are going to be erased. So let's say the control selection, they are going to be erased if you don't control them manually. So in terms of how cards work, that's it. And just would like to go through a few concepts before wrapping up. We can see that by playing around with cards, there are a few features that are kind of mentioned, but they don't integrate exactly as described yet. For example, the integration with Power Automate and Power Virtual Agents. We can find it in the cards, but it's not fully released by Microsoft, and we cannot find the options in Power Virtual Agents and Power Automate yet. So don't consider the product like usable for production scenarios, because it's already stated by Microsoft that's in preview, and as usual, play around with it, create proofs of concepts, but things can change. We never know how are the features that are going to be released into GA for the future, but it's always good to be knowing what's coming for the future. And new features that we can expect that are going to come to cards, as already stated by Microsoft, it's the availability in Outlook, because it's going to be available not only to be used in Teams, but also in Outlook emails. We will have support from our platform connectors. So we expect that we would have probably the same connectors that we have in Canvas apps, or at least the same connectors in terms of dataset connectors as, for example, SharePoint and SQL Server. And as I stated, much likely we hope that there's going to be officially an integration with Power Virtual Agents and Power Automate, so we can be creating more advanced workflows with less work by using cards to design the adaptive cards. And that's it for me.
Thanks so much, Michel, for that demo and the presentation. It was really great. So I just want to say a big thanks to all of our speakers, Tomasz, Marcel and Michel, again, for a great series of presentations and for a great hour of learning all about the Power Platform. So now we'll get straight into the questions and answers part. So should you wish to ask a question on any of the three topics, please feel free to type it into the questions window now, along with who your question is for, and we will get to it at the end. So Tomasz has already answered a couple of his questions in the Q&A box, but if anyone else has any more questions for Tomasz, please feel free to ask. So our first question today is for Michel. So someone is asking, does cards for Power Apps work only in one-to-one conversations, or can I use cards in channel chats or chats with multiple people?
No, it would work the same. You can send a card in a channel chat or a group chat, and it's designed to work the same way, at least from what I tested so far. So,
brilliant, thank you. So another question, Michel, is there any special type of permission needed to create cards?
there is currently cards, all the data related to cards, it's stored in a new table named cards. So the person needs to have permissions into that table to be able to create cards. And currently the environment maker already has permissions. The environment maker permission set already have permissions on that table. But if you want to kind of limit maybe a user to not create cards, you would be needing to create a custom permission level and taking out permissions to that table.
Brilliant, thank you. So just another question then again, Michel, how do you govern the cards? Do you control who can create them and where the data is sent? Do they follow DLP? What about ALM? And can you add them to solutions?
I don't have an official answer for this, but like just thinking about it, you can control who can create them by changing the permissions in the cards. If we are using the same Power Platform connectors as Canvas apps and Power Automate, then much likely DLP is going to be valid for it as well, because if we block a connector across other tools in the Power Platform, it should be blocked in cards as well. And actually, there is an option to add cards into solutions, but as far as I tested it, it's not fully ready yet. We can actually add a card into a solution, but then we cannot edit the card from a solution. So you see only the JSON object of the card. It doesn't open the editor to be editing the card as a visual element, as I showed here.
Great. And Michel, just another question came in there. Can users submit cards more than one time?
You can submit cards more than one time. Like the thing is, if you play a card, it's going to generate a unique ID, a unique session ID for that card. And then that card can be pasted into different conversations with the same session ID. Then that session ID is what governs the permanent variables, as I was explaining. The permanent variable is valid only through that session ID, but then you can send the same card into different chats and for different people. And then obviously your logic would have to handle it. So if you need to, erase values or reset values, you would have to think about how you set up the variables or store the data in Dataverse.
Brilliant, thank you, Michel. And just another question in here. This one is for Marcel. So someone's asking, where does the task ID come from? Is it part of JSON by default?
What was the question?
So someone is asking, where does the task ID come from? And is it part of JSON by default?
No, this was in the subject. It was just a part of the subject, and I split it this. But you can also grab this from this HTML table if this is in.
Brilliant. So that seems to be all the questions we have today. So on behalf of the ESPC community, we would like to extend a big thank you again to all of you for taking the time today to carry out this webinar. We really do appreciate it. So folks, this is the end of today's webinar. You can find this webinar and more at sharepointeurope.com/resource center. Thank you for joining us today. Take care and goodbye.